This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Post Pub Cinema, the series where we look at films through the lens of beer goggles and give our thoughts about them. Because if you've never seen a movie wasted, have you even seen the movie? This week we're going to look at the original Star Wars trilogy, the OT. Doesn't matter if you're a fan of the sequels or the prequels, I think we can all agree that the first three films are the best. First of all, just getting started watching the first film, what really comes across to me is this is how you open a film. This is how you start a movie. It says the title Star Wars. What's it about? It's about people having a good old fight in space, and the opening in this film just exactly sums up exactly what you're getting into with this opening scene. It's absolutely fantastic. You know, stormtroopers blast the door down, they're just gunning down all these rebels left and right, and you know exactly what's going on, and it's just amazing. Star Wars, I mean, what can you say about it that hasn't already been said a million times? But it's just such a great film to sit down and watch, no matter what. Whenever it's on, you can't help but sit down and watch your way through it. What I've always really thought about what is it makes it unique, especially original films, and I think it's it's the look, it's the aesthetic, it's the design of these films. I mean, the detail and world building and that went into especially even the original film. I think it cost around $40 million when it was made, which back then was like a medium budget film, and quite a small budget for a science fiction film. But every penny's up in screen. They really, they kept the story more or less simple to kind of keep production costs down, but the pace of the storytelling and just like the tone and the humour and the action, it's just classic now, but at the time it was groundbreaking. The costume design and the creature design as well, and even this is 1976, 77. This film was released and it still holds up even today. I mean, the special effect. This is obviously the special edition I'm actually showing here, so they obviously cleaned up a lot of the image and improved slightly some of the special effects from the day, but a lot of it is as it was back in the day, and it still holds up pretty well. I mean, it looks great. So the first film, it kind of goes on about, obviously it's Luke getting introduced to the rebellion and finding out that there's a bigger world out there, and he goes to rescue a princess like in a classic fairy tale sense, and then he gets involved in a battle at the end. And here, it's just pure spectacle. I mean, even the third act of this film is it ends on a high, literally. You start off, you've got sword fights, and you've got, gun battles, and then you've just got this massive dogfight in space at the end. And you can see why it was a big hit at the time, because it's revolutionary. Another thing to say about the first film is how much Harrison Ford steals the scene, every scene he's in. He's kind of like a backup character to Luke, and he just really, he became, Harrison Ford became a big star, but in this film it's kind of clear why, because, he kind of, whether he made it so or whether it was written to be so, he is the most interesting character in the original film. I don't think it was even sure he was going to come back and do another film, because I think all the other actors were contracted for 3 movies, but Harrison Ford wasn't, so they had to convince him to come back, obviously by paying him probably a lot more money. But it was clear very much after the first film that everybody's favourite character was Han Solo. Another character that's really great is Alec Guinness playing Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, Peter Cushing does really well as General Moff Tarkin, and I think these kind of older English actors, they bring a bit of heft and a bit of weight to the roles. They make what something could be quite silly, like a parody almost. They kind of give weight to every line they say, and they make it believable, and they kind of invest this world with a kind of a fantasy that it probably wouldn't have had if they'd used only American actors, because I just think, you know, the British accent kind of adds a sense of mystique to the role. James L. Jones is Darth Vader as well. I mean, I'm not sure when he came into production, like, was it post-production they actually got him to do the voiceover, but, you know, what an incredible change, because I don't think anybody else could have given that character the voice that James L. Jones had given him, and to give it in such a way that it can be menacing and give presence just by voice alone, and it should create much of the character. It speaks a lot about how good an actor James L. Jones really is. Yeah, when we get to the Empire Strikes Back, the film changes a lot in terms of the tone and the mood. It's a different director in the chair. It's Irwin Kershner, who was like George Lucas's teacher back at the film school back in the day, and he brings, you know, he seems to be more interested in the mythological aspect to the series, more in the science fiction, and a lot of this film kind of goes into kind of the psychological underpinnings of the characters, their motivations and fears, and it's just a really, really, you know, more mature, darker look at the material, and it kind of elevates the series to, you know, like a really, you know, pure sci-fi, you know, in the vein of like 2001. And visually, this film, I mean, it's got a bigger budget, the sets are more elaborate. Darth Vader's character, he completely changes. He becomes much more sinister in the second film than he was in the first film. There's more menacing. His voice seems a bit deeper. I think they've maybe changed it in sound production. We get to meet Yoda. He trains Luke. We get to go to, you know, Cloud City, and, you know, when you compare this to other science fiction films made around the same time, the level, you know, just like the quality of the designs and the special effects are just, there was just no competition. No one even came near the same level for that period of time. My favourite part in Empire Strikes Back is the third act, when Luke confronts Darth Vader for the first time. He's had a little bit of training, he's feeling a bit confident, but, you know, he's definitely not ready to, you know, fight him on his own, but he does it anyway, and it really makes for just one of the most epic confrontations on film. The way it's shot, the use of the lighting, you know, like the mist kind of going in the background, and just a lot of good close-ups, and you just really get a sense of it. It doesn't just jump into it. It starts off slow and then it kind of builds up. But Darth Vader is just such a scary presence in this first film, and Cloud City, just like the whole design of it as well. You really feel like Luke's in a lot of trouble. He's completely on his own. He's out of his depth. He's well overmatched. You know, he cannot overcome this foe, but, you know, he's there, and this is it. And you know, it takes a character, it's essentially a buckethead character, you know, a man with a bucket on his head, and turns him into one of the most fearsome characters in cinema history. But also, like, what actually, you know, the conversation that follows this fight elevates the material like Shakespearean tragedy, and we start to kind of see who these characters really are. It had like the biggest twist of all time. People, you know, didn't expect it at all, and it completely turned the series from what you thought it was in the first film into something else. And you know, it's probably the favourite of the fans. I think people think because it's, you know, it's so, you know, dark and mature and grown up, and, you know, that people really love it. But me personally, you know, I like Star Wars, but my introduction is, you know, when I was young, wasn't with Empire or the original film. I think the first Star Wars movie I ever saw was Return of the Jedi, which gets a hell of a lot of hate today from a lot of fans, which I think is unfair. Richard Marquand, he was the director on this one. Sadly, he passed away a few years after the film was made, so we don't really have a lot of material about him talking about the movie. He did some interviews in some magazines, sci-fi magazines, but there's not a lot you know. But I think what he done with Star Wars was to kind of bring it back to its space opera origins. If people know anything about space opera, and it's like humble beginnings, and there was like a comic series called A Princess of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs, which is a story about John Carter. It was later made into a film by Disney, but this film for me is probably the most most faithful to that kind of pulpy space opera material. There's a lot of like Frank Frazetta influence as well, especially with Princess Leia's golden bikini, which became completely iconic after the film. But I really think the beginning of Return of the Jedi is absolutely fantastic because, Luke's now a grown-up Jedi. He's, fully trained, and we're not completely sure at the beginning of the film which side he's gonna take. Is he going to use the dark side? Is he going to go the light side? Because he's pretty it's pretty obscure at the beginning. If he's a goodie or a baddie, we get some excellent creature effects from ILM, some stop motion, which again just raised the bar of what's possible to do at that time. And it's quite exciting. I mean, as a young kid watching it, I thought this scene with the Rancor when Luke's fighting this giant kind of dinosaur thing, I thought this was fantastic, especially this part when he kind of grabs one of these Farks, it's not Fark, but it's kind of like the Fark from John Carter of Mars, and just eats its head off, bites its head off. I mean, as a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, I thought that was great, and the look of Jabba the Hutt, he looks amazing as well. And I think, that's the way you kind of have to look at Star Wars, is like it is made for kids more than it is for adults. I love the pace of these films as well. They don't stop. You don't have 2 seconds to look at something and it's moving on to someone else. And it's in the original films, they're always kind of showing you something a little bit different, a different little part of the world. Like here, it's obviously focused on the crime lord Jabba the Hutt and his minions. But when we get to Endor, you kind of get this forest planet, but it's also got this whole culture with Ewoks, and it's been kind of like invaded by stormtroopers, which is kind of like an analogy of Vietnam or something at the time. Now people give a lot of hate to this part, but just looking at the speeder chase, this was again in its day, this was groundbreaking special effects, having this kind of bike chase through the forest. And it's still, even it was like 1983 today, it still hands up. I think it still kind of holds up pretty well. So yeah, it kind of, the characters, they're kind of together, but they kind of do their own thing as well. I mean, Leia and Han have got less to do in this film than they had in the other two, which is disappointing. I'm not even sure if Harrison Ford wanted to do this film, because he goes from kind of being like quite a big role in Empire Strikes Back to really kind of like a minor character in this film. The Ewoks, they get the most hate. Ian McDiarmid, he went on to kind of really make the role he's on in the prequel films, but here, this is his introduction, and it's, again, for a kids film, this is quite a scary character. The first time you see him with his kind of yellow eyes and kind of old face, and he's just kind of sinister looking and menacing, and he's just sitting in a chair, which is to credit to the director and the other filmmakers. But look at those eyes, it's something at The Exorcist when you watch it. And the whole interplay between him and Luke and his kind of try to seduce Luke to the dark side is it's really well done. Admiral Akbar, classic. The face of 1,000 memes. Lando, he gets quite a good thing to do. He kind of leads the battle in Amongst the Stars. And here, like, the special effects have got to a point where they can really show. And the Ewoks, despite the hate they get, here they go full tilt Rambo in the forest against these stormtroopers. This is proper, Viet Cong teddy bears stuff. And I think it's underappreciated, really, because I think when I was watching this as a kid, I thought this was absolutely amazing. Just watching these Care Bears just tear into these soldiers and robots, and it's quite brutal. It's no holds barred for like a kids film. Like, they really give the Empire a good doing, and it's analogy of Vietnam, like a technologically superior force getting their asses handed to them by primitive tribes. So later recopied in Avatar, so you can think what you want there, but I think it's pretty good. How this is handled, like the resolution between Luke and Darth Vader, was really, really good as well, I thought. I mean, it plays on the kind of drama that's established in the first film, and I think, for the third film in a trilogy, for, like, even in the third act, it's just all spectacle. It's just huge battles. You've got the one going on in the stars, you've got one going on in the ground, you've got the conflict between Luke, the Emperor, and Darth Vader. And, it's kind of relentless, but it's just so enjoyable to sit and watch as well. So, maybe talking about this, maybe Jedi is my favourite film, but it definitely was when I was younger, so you think what you want on that one. But overall, I think the OT, it's just still a great, series of films to watch, and you can watch it with your kids, and it kind of passes down. And, what else to say about the Luke Skywalker story? The Luke Skywalker story, apart from, it was really well done. And I mean, this scene here at the end, I mean, if you've watched all three films and you were into it, this scene here, when you see him, just kind of like, okay, letting go of his past and just accepting, that there's been a bit of redemption in the character and stuff, without spoilers really here. But I just thought this was really well done, these wee moments here. So all credit to Richard Marquand, because I think he should get more credit than he's been given for that film. But that's my thoughts on the Star Wars trilogy. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give a like, subscribe. What do you think of the Star Wars OT trilogy? Is it good? Is it bad? Give us your thoughts, and I'll see you next time.
Yo, what's up? Baby, let's go!